about this particular topic this evening, but all of our conversations that we've had throughout the semester. Finally, before I take a seat, I want you guys to, are you comfortable? I know it's warm in here, right? And I apologize for that. But I want you guys to reach, just reach for me. Reach as high as you can. Now reach a little further. Reach a little further. Awesome, give yourselves a round of applause. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I reaching? Well, I'm hoping that by the end of our conversation tonight, that you would have stretched yourself a little further, that you would have reached a little further, that throughout this evening there may be some discomfort, but you'll be willing to face whatever the discomfort may be and stretch yourselves. Now, I saw the very first time you reached, whenever you had your hands up, but the second time you did reach a little further, so that says to me you have the capacity to reach and expose yourself and stretch yourself a little bit further. So I appreciate all of you for participating in that exercise, and right after this brief video, we're going to engage in a quick exercise in silence. So for the next 3 or 4 minutes, let's check out this video.
And best friends.
We all have different religions, but we have universal love as well.
I love my sister.
Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Awesome. When we think about Courageous Conversations in the College of Education, this short video clip demonstrates our goal that ultimately throughout this semester and throughout the fall and continuing on, that we'll be able to provide opportunities, as one of our students in the audience said, that it's no judgment at all. Before we move forward, are there any immediate reactions to watching the video? This is designed to be a conversation, a dialogue. Do you have a question, sir, or a comment? Oh, I thought your hand was up with the pencil, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I knew the video was on Facebook, but I didn't really watch it. But like watching it now, I thought it was really good. 'Cause I know it was skeletons, but I didn't know the people behind it.
Right. So will you share your comment one more time?
Oh, I wasn't on there. I thought I was okay. What I said was I thought it was very beautiful because I just knew it was skeletons or the X-ray. I didn't know what people were behind it. When the people came out, it was like, oh, that's really good. And then the sign, or what the words on the side said, it was like, I just thought it was a beautiful video.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I actually enjoyed that video because it shows that no matter what's going on in your life, you can all be unified at a certain extent. It's not by your race or any other thing like that. It's just you being you. Love. It says in Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful, love is not jealous. It's the same thing with everything else. It's just being connected as one.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Y'all get it? I thought it was sweet, and I thought it was sweet, and I thought it was like the point was really made, and like the first couple that was behind the X-ray thing, and when the two women came out, and you seen the camera went back to the crowd, and you see the reactions, like you see something like, oh, that's so sweet. You see something like, and I thought it was cute.
Awesome. So what I'd like to do now is if everyone is sitting comfortable in your chair, I'm going to ask you to put everything down and I'm going to ask you to stand up. When you came in tonight, you were given an index card. If you have any questions that you want to ask any of our guests from Amplified, if you would write your question on the index card, and then one of Rebecca or Brandon, I see Brandon to my right, I saw Rebecca to my right earlier, they'll be more than glad to take your index card and pass it to the members of Amplified. So what we're about to do now is we're going to participate in an exercise, and I'm hoping that you will be courageous enough to participate in this exercise. The exercise will require you to stand and to sit. I'm going to give you some prompts. And as you hear those prompts, if you identify with those prompts, I would like for you to stand, if you're physically able to do so. If you don't identify with the prompts, then you can remain seated. Does anyone have any questions? All right, you guys can have a seat. So if you, again, this is an opportunity to be courageous, and we're hoping that through this exercise, in silence, meaning no talking, that would also allow you to be exposed to a different way of thinking and processing information. So if you are a single child or only child, if you would please stand. Single, only child. So as those individuals stand, just think about what their life was like not having any siblings, not having anyone to turn to talk to. For those of you that are sitting, think about what your experience has been as you talk to other people that are the only child, what their life experiences have been like, how they've walked through life being the only person that they can depend on. Think about comments that you've made about people that have come from a household where they are just this only child, a single child. Thank you. You may be seated. If you come from a single parent household, if you would, please stand. As we see the individuals that are standing that come from a single parent household, think about the comments you've made about people that come from a household where it's just one parent. Think about what their lives have been like for those that are standing to come from a single parent household, only having one parent. Thank you. You may be seated. If you identify as biracial or multi-ethnic, if you would, please stand. Think about comments we've made about people that are biracial. Imagine what their experience in life was like. For those of us that are sitting, think about the thoughts that you have of individuals that are biracial. Do you support? Do you defend? Do you stand up? Thank you. You may be seated. If you identify as being European American, white, or Caucasian, please stand. Imagine what your experience is like being European American, Caucasian, white. Think about those that are sitting that don't identify, what your experiences, your thoughts have been about individuals that identify as being white, European American, Caucasian. Thank you. You may be seated. If you've ever felt excluded from a particular group, if you've ever felt excluded from a particular group, please stand. Imagine what, for those of us that are sitting, what their life is like being excluded from a group, not feeling a part of. Think about the comments you've made about individuals. Think about whether or not you were one of the individuals that are sitting down that excluded someone from a group. Thank you. You may be seated. If you've ever felt unsafe at school, if you've ever felt unsafe at school, please stand. Imagine what life is like for someone to walk through school not feeling safe. Imagine what those experiences is like for those that are standing to feel unsafe. Again, this is an exercise in silence, respecting those that are standing. Thank you. You may be seated. If you've ever heard anyone call someone a sissy, a fag, or gay, please stand. So you've heard someone being called this. Just imagine what that experience was like when that message was directed towards that individual. Did you stand up for them? Did you say something on their behalf? Thank you. You may be seated. If someone in your family identifies as being a lesbian, being gay, bisexual, transgender, if someone in your family identifies, please stand. For those of us that are sitting, imagine what the experience is like for that family member that identifies, but then also to be a family member of that individual, what their experience is like, their journey. And for those of us that are sitting, think about the experiences in your journey of someone that you may know in another person's family and what their life's journey is like. You may be seated. Thank you. And the last prompt, if you've ever stood up or spoken on behalf or defended the rights of someone that identifies as LGBT, please stand. If you've ever stood up, spoken on behalf, or defended the rights. Think about those that are sitting that may not have had the courage to stand but wanted to stand to speak on behalf of the rights of someone but elected not to. Think about those in the room that are standing that spoke, stood up, defended the rights of someone that identifies in the LGBT population. Thank you. You may be seated. So before I turn the microphone over to the members of Amplified, I just want to spend a couple of minutes and ask, was there anyone in the room that had experienced any type of feelings as we went through that exercise from the beginning to end of the prompts? get the comment of the young lady in the back and then the gentleman to my right.
When you asked if anyone was biracial, I was kind of confused because my mom did the DNA testing for Ancestry, and she just found out that she's more Asian than she is African American. So that's passed down to me. So I just found out that I'm not fully African American that I thought my whole life. So it's like, am I still fully black like I thought I was, or if I'm biracial? So I just stayed seated because I didn't know.
Thank you for sharing. So there was a little bit of confusion maybe on behalf of researching our history, right? So the gentleman here, your thoughts?
As you were going through the prompts, I felt like I did when I watched the film. I felt it to be a little bit disturbing and somewhat misleading. I didn't find it sweet or nice. I felt that the video was suggesting that whatever I feel, it's okay, as if there is no standard. And so I felt it to be misleading and somewhat disturbing.
Thank you for your comments. Was there anyone in the audience that wanted to stand but elected not to stand for fear of others that may be watching or looking at you? Anyone courageous enough to say that I wanted to stand? Thank you for raising your hand. Thank you.
When you were asking the question about how one identifies by race, for me it's from a Western European perspective, because among Native American people, we look at people as being people. We don't say this one's black, this one's white, this one's Asian. We bring people in as family, so it's not, for me, a black and white or red or a yellow situation. And so I remain seated. And I think I wanted to add that not all of these questions, they're posed in a way that if you don't stand, you might feel that there's something wrong with you, but it may be in how the question is posed.
Thank you for your comments. We have our final comment here, and then I'm going to turn the microphone over, and we'll start our dialogue by way of introductions.
Just quickly, doing that activity, I felt a sense of relief, almost freedom, when I was able to stand, especially during the prompt where it asked you, have you ever felt excluded from a group? And I felt some freedom in just standing and recognizing that in front of a group.
Thank you for sharing. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Darian, and he's the president of Amplified, and I'm just going to allow you to have introductions by way that you'd like to have introductions and kind of start the conversation from there. Let's put our hands together.
Good evening, everybody. I am Darian Aaron. I'm the president and founder of Amplified. Amplified is ASU's first chartered LGBT student group. And we are really proud of that fact. Because from what I was told before we got our charter last spring, that other students had tried in the past, but they were unsuccessful. So this is the first time that ASU has a group specifically that caters to LGBT Hornets and our straight allies. The group is inclusive. It is for everyone. And I saw a need to create this group because I saw a large group of LGBT students here at ASU that were not organized, and there was no formal support for us here on campus as people who identify as LGBT. So it was really important for me to start Amplified. I just want to speak briefly on the video that we saw because it's on my heart right now, because I actually have two close friends that are in that video. The black gay couple that you saw, Jason and Anthony, they're a couple out of LA with their adopted son, Marcelino. That portion of the video was specifically moving for me, because as someone who identifies as a black gay man, very rarely do I see images that represent who I am and how I love in the media, especially in a positive way. So that really hit home with me when I saw that. And I heard the word standard here a minute ago. And I just want to address that briefly, because one thing that I love about that video is that it recognizes the humanity within all of us. And if there's anything that I can impart in all of you today, is that we create a space for people to be exactly who they are, to be their authentic selves. One thing that I've always said, when I walk into a room, I want to make sure that I can bring all of who I am along with me. I'm going to bring my black self, I'm going to bring my gay self. Because if you take apart part of that identity, then you don't have the full me. All of that makes me who I am. So when we talk in terms of standard, let me be clear that your story is not my story. My story is not your story. It is the most, how can I put this? I hate this word, but I'm going to use it. It is the most abnormal thing that I could do as a gay man, to pretend to be something that I'm not. To enter into a relationship with a woman under the guise of being heterosexual or straight acting. That's not who I am. I am a black gay man. So the standard that I live up to is one that is authentic. And I wish that for each and every one of you that's here today, create a space for people to be exactly who they are. Live your truth. Walk in your truth. And I'll turn it over. Does anyone have a question? No?
Do you have comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a heterosexual female, and I do not discriminate by any means. I'm going to love you the same. But sitting here tonight as a graduate student, and I deal with students, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, so I have to deal with this on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting here, intaking your information that you're willing to give us tonight, I appreciate that, but your delivery method right now is quite offensive, and it's kind of abrasive. And I'm saying that from my perspective, not from anyone else's.
Okay.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm almost getting offended. I kind of feel like you're beating up on people who may not understand.
Let me address that.
No,
That's an interesting, let me just address that real quick, and then I'll turn it back to you, because that's an interesting observation. As someone who, for the first part of his life, was closeted, was afraid to come out, there was not a space for me to openly be who I was and to be affirmed in my truth. It's not very often that we get to share with people. So when we get that opportunity, let me apologize if it comes off as abrasive, because that's not who I am. And I know you don't know me personally, so you have no idea who I am as a person. That's not who I am, and that's not how I mean to come off. But when we get the opportunity to stand and tell our story, we jump at it. Because so often our stories are told by other people. And so often they get it wrong. But I'm standing here in my truth, telling you exactly who I am. And it's not abrasive, but it's not very often that we get the opportunity to actually stand before people who look like us. And let me tell you something. There is nothing like the kind of rejection that you get from other black and brown people. I came out to my family when I was 16 years old. And the first reaction was, you can't be gay because you don't do drag. I remember that. So my own people were filled with stereotypes about who I could possibly be as a gay man. They didn't know the truth. And so often we're silenced because of who we are. So when we get the opportunity to speak, let me apologize, because it might come off a little abrasive. Because all of our lives we've been attacked. So we always have our guard up, and we're always on the defensive, because we're constantly told that who we are is wrong. Who we are is an abomination. So let me apologize for that, because I'm a little full right now, because I know where these kind of conversations can lead, because we were here last fall. If you guys came to the New Black forum and screening, it got pretty heated. But it was a conversation that needed to happen. So again, I apologize if it comes off abrasive, because that's not my intent. But it is really important to me that I tell my story and that other people don't tell it for me. Go ahead, you said you wanted to finish up. You had something else to say.
I kind of forgot, but it's more or less, I respect your stand and where you're coming from. But at the same time, if for someone to receive it, I don't know about anyone else, but in order for me to receive it, it has to be delivered in a certain way. Out of respect for you, I would appreciate if you delivered it a little bit more calm. I understand your excitement and your, having the floor and being able to share it. But in order for a person like me, because I know I'm not the only person, I have to receive it a certain way in order for me to digest it. If it comes at me screaming and it's just so much, it's clouded by the tone. I can't hear your words.
I totally hear you, and that's important, and that's the note I will take.
To you. I can't hear it.
I get you,
from the
sister.
tone.
I get you. I totally do. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I just want to remind everyone, tonight is all about being courageous enough to have a conversation, to respect each other in a safe place, to have the dialogue where those questions that we may have that we've never been able to ask anyone, that we want to ask someone, that we have an opportunity to do so. If you do have questions and want to write your questions on an index card, by all means you can do that and raise your hand. Raise your card and we'll have one of our volunteers to pick up your card and share it with the group.
You guys have a question, comment? Question, comment from Amplify? Someone else? Yes, sir.
I heard in your delivery talk about a number of concepts: create your space, live out your truth. But truth is not situational. Truth is truth whether I believe it or not. Gravity is real whether I believe it's real or not. If I get on top of a building and say that I don't believe in gravity, if I step off that building, I'm going to find out real quickly that gravity is real, whether I believe it or not. When you say create your space, well, let's create some space for the pedophile who only likes small children, who has documented scientific proof that he or she is only attracted to small children.
So if I can interrupt you really quickly,
well,
our conversation tonight.
You did not interrupt him. No sir, no sir.
Population.
We're gonna be fair. Let's be fair.
Well,
he said create space.
Right.
I'm talking about the danger of just creating space.
However, your space is not directed toward the comments or the conversation tonight.
Actually, it is he talked about a bias-free zone. Right now, I'm detecting a bias that's against the heterosexual now. I respect the homosexual opinion. I embrace diversity. I also embrace truth. That we're going to create space for people's inclinations and people's own truths. Then there are many different populations that we need to be ready to create space for.
Absolutely.
And there are people who have scientific documentation that they're only attracted to people at a certain age, and when they hit 12 and 13, they're no longer attracted to them.
But
so
how does your comment, because we're creating a space now to talk about the LGBT population. That's the space we're creating.
Actually, I guess I'm misled because I thought we were talking about diversity. I thought we were talking about diversity tonight. And if we're going to talk about diversity, let's talk about diversity.
But it's specific to the LGBT population.
You told me that we were going to have a courageous conversation. My tone is civil. I'm not upset. But I'm not bashful or shy about speaking what I believe to be true. If we're going to create space for people's desires, people's affections, people's inclinations, let's create some space for the pedophile.
But that's a different conversation, though. That's a different conversation than what we're having tonight.
It's the very same premise. His premise, his argument was, we're going to create space for people to bring all of who they are into the room. So let's let the pedophile bring all of who he is into our rooms. And let's embrace his rights and his truth. And if we're going to put up images, let's put a picture of a 40-year-old man up there kissing an 8-year-old girl. Let's create some space and bring all of the truth.
Excuse me, I
into
really
the
would
room.
like to go ahead and respond to you.
Hold on, time out.
Well, I am going to, out of respect for you, we're going to end our dialogue about your safe
But
place
you
that
felt
you
no
created.
need to end his dialogue, even though people are being offended. Here you go, sir.
Thank you.
Courageous conversation.
It's courageous, but do you remember that our topic tonight is about the LGBT population?
Diversity.
Last month we talked about disabilities. The month before that we talked about awareness. Next month we'll talk about international students.
Both sides. Let's hear both sides, sir.
I understand your point.
I got a lot more points.
Okay. So, can I go ahead and respond now?
Absolutely.
So that we all can reach a conclusion of this argument. And I kind of want to just address the fact that you mentioned pedophilia. And I want you to be able to understand the place where all of us who identify as LGBTQ are in right now. We're in that place of remembering our parents likening our same-sex attraction to pedophilia, right? Because that happens to me all the time. Every single time I have a conversation with my mother, she brings it up. She does exactly what you're doing, right? And that's wrong for so many reasons, because I don't see how you can liken a love between two consenting adults to pedophilia, and why it always has to be about sex. Because I'm going to say it right now, because this is a safe space, I say what I want to say. I am a virgin, right? I have never had sex, but I know I'm same-sex loving, right? I know I'm trans, and I kind of do feel some kind of way about that, because when you liken LGBT people to pedophilia, what about the trans people? You know, because gender non-conforming people don't deal with sexual orientation. It's not the same thing, right? Also, you know, you say it's a safe space, right, for people who identify any kind of way, but you have to understand that people who are pedophiles do have that space, right? They do have spaces where they can go in and they can talk about, you know, problems that they face, because, you know, they have feelings towards people who can't consent to that kind of love, right? And that's okay, you know, because I do advocate for not putting people who identify as a pedophile, you know, to be put to death. I don't think that's acceptable. I really don't believe in it, because they can recognize that they have a problem. We can recognize that they have a problem, but it doesn't mean that they lose their humanity all of a sudden. Why do you label them just as a pedophile? They are a pedophile person because they are a person who has attractions to people who cannot consent to them. They don't stop being people. Don't let anyone ever stop being a person just because they don't adhere to normativity. They're still people at the end of the day.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you've been to our library, then you already know I'm the librarian. But I was late because we were assisting students, and I wanted to know from Dr. Hinton if you had already, if I had missed a portion of this program where we established and defined what a safe space was going to be and what the rules of dialogue and engagement were going to be for this evening, so that if that's the case, then I can be reminded, and those who are in the crowd will be able to support each other in making sure that everybody is enforcing and abiding by those principles.
The primary dialogue was for members of Amplify to kind of share their story. We have index cards for those that may have questions, that they can write their questions down that could be passed on to members of Amplify. But the members also have the right to, that if they want to take questions, they can take questions throughout the process. So feel free to make your comment or ask your question of the members.
Okay, so what I want to propose to our discussion tonight is if whether with the leadership of Amplify or yourself as a facilitator could define what a safe space is going to be, how we're defining safety, and what the rules of respect are going to be for the conversation, and also to model some of the conversations that I've been a part of that were sponsored by the Human Rights Campaign, if we can agree as a crowd of what are safe what a word is going to be that we will agree that when someone is going to an area or saying something that's offensive, that we will say this is, whether it's ouch, whatever, so that we'll know how to continue to keep the conversation moving in a way that's respectful. My hope is that, and my intending here is that we're going to walk away with education. And so I'm going to tell you that as liberal and as vocal and as aggressive as I am about speaking my truth and my mind and opinion, I don't feel safe in this moment based off what I've seen modeled, because we started off a conversation where one of our graduate explained that she didn't feel that the delivery was correct. And I don't think, even though the response was respectful, I still don't think that we really gave space and opportunity to understand what she said, and then that's led on to more monologues. Then we're interrupting one another, which is not respectful, even though the conversation may be a little abrasive. So I just want to know if we can come up as a group, as a consensus with the Leadership Amplified, what this conversation is going to look like going on, so that I will be a little more comfortable, and maybe some others have the same concerns to speak out and ask questions.
Well, we'll share this with you. We did talk about the College of Ed has created safe places, and the safe places are for individuals that want to go and talk to someone about a diverse issue, whether it's a faculty member or a staff member, by the sign that we have posted throughout the building, but also on our doors. For tonight, the dialogue is really about moving forward at this point with the few minutes that we do have left, because it's designed to be an hour, to find out what can we do to help our students on campus to feel safe. But then also, for so many education majors in the room, how do we move forward to help our teachers, our graduates, our counselors that are in the school system, as well as those that may be working in the business arena, to be able to have conversations and dialogues with their peers? How do they work with parent-teacher conferences when both parents come in and they happen to be both male or both female? And to see if there are any struggles with students in the room as it relates to this particular topic. Our goal is to have topics every single month that's diverse, so that we can grow from each other. So, in response to your question, part of it was we did talk about safe places, but we didn't talk about safe places as it relates to this room, but the safe places that we're creating in the College of Ed. And we wanted members of Amplified to kind of share their story and to give us insight as it relates to their journey and how we can better prepare some of our educators in the room to work with other students that may be struggling in the classroom, or parents that may come to a parent-teacher conference as it relates to both being male parents, two-parent household, and the sort. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Dre, you said to improve our student body. Me, I'm running for HCA Vice President in this coming campaign. I want to ask Amplified, as a student body, do you all feel that you all are being represented by the student body? Because we are all a student body, no matter race, gender, or ethnicity.
First of all, I want to address everyone, and I want to apologize for this conversation for those people who actually have to write a paper about this. Because if I had to write a paper at this point, I would have nothing to put down. Because this has not been a courageous conversation. This has been a tit for tat, explain anything but what we were supposed to do. And so I'm going to take it as, my position as VP of Amplified to apologize and to actually give you guys something of substance that you can take back to actually write something of substance on. Furthermore, I think that my post on the initial date of the running, or when everybody was able to start campaigning, I wrote a post and it kind of sort of went viral through the SGA, is what I'm told. And it was simply because I made this statement from my own personal point of view. I can't speak for every gay person on this campus. But my personal point of view was that I notice every campaign season that there are SGA people that you don't know, people that just popped up out of the woodwork, that will jump at the chance to come to an Amplified meeting, to have me do their makeup, to be my friend for campaign season. And that bothers me. Because the entire semester, you guys don't care about LGBT issues. There are 1,000 trans women, gay men, and lesbians being brutally beaten, and that matters not. The entire semester. And then come campaign season, it's like, oh, I'm running for president and I want you to know that I support your cause. And then after, you win or don't win, you don't know what the cause was even, 2 seconds before. And that bothers me. Do I think that we're being represented? No, because I don't think that anybody cares. I think that you want our votes, but I don't think that you actually care enough to understand why we should want to vote for you. The question came up when we were doing the exercise. Stand up if you have ever felt unsafe at your school. The bigger question is, why have we felt unsafe at our school? I want to say for me, a personal reason that I feel unsafe at my school isn't because there are 1,000 bullies, because if you know me, this is a monotone hoe. But everybody know I turn up like that. I go from 0 to 1,000 real quick. And it's just kind of like, I don't have a problem dealing with the bullies and the stupid asses that are going to come, because they're going to come. And they've come for my entire life. If it's just something that you, as a gay person, you adjust, you deal with. And of course, it's not fair, but we get over it, because it's one of those punishments, aside from AIDS, of course, that we get for being gay. And that was with sarcasm. But I think the idea of us feeling unsafe is the fact that you can't go to the people that are supposed to help you in the counseling center, because a lot of them have homophobic issues with religion and their own agendas. We have to realize that although people are trained and they go to trainings and they talk and they sit down and they got a cousin and their uncle and their daddy came out at 45, left their mama, and he's living with somebody, that they are still people. And people are entitled to their own opinions. And when people are entitled to their own opinions, they're entitled to those feelings, and they can tap into those whether they're being paid to be a muffy cupcake face or not. And I think we forget that. Just because the title says, and just because the banner looks like, and just because they pretend to be, does not mean that they are. And that's the problem. And I think that's the problem for most people at schools, because we as students realize that. And a lot of the time, other faculty and staff don't. Because a lot of those faculty and staff are there to do their job. They're there to be there for the students. And they don't realize that every teacher is not that way. Every counselor is not that way. Every person working in the field of human resources is not that way. We forget that people are people. Thank you, but I'm just stating my truth. As we said, we're going to walk in our truth. I think that for me to feel safe and for me to feel represented, if that was your question, for me to feel like I was represented by my SGA would have to show me. And I don't care who wins. I don't care who Miss ASU is. I don't care who our SGA president is, because honestly, the last 4 years that I've been here, the only president that has done something for me was Sherrod when it snowed and he brought food to my room. And that was the only thing that I can remember that my president did for me. And I'm not even sure what the duties of a president are, so I can't say that, you guys are not working in the Senate, in the SGA complex. But what I do want to know is that we have an actual safe space. I don't want to go into a room, and I hate to be too real about it, but I would hate to go into a room and run into him. Because it would hurt my feelings, and I would never come back. I would never come back.
So one of the things that we also want to, in the last couple of minutes, to walk away with is that one of the things, I teach students that are working on their master's degree in school counseling and clinical mental health. And so many of our students will come back, and as we're staffing or talking about a case, how do I work with this particular student that's struggling with this issue? How do I work with the client that needs to find a job, but they're dealing with identity issues? And so we talk about it, and with our course curriculum, all of our students are required to take a diverse POPs course, which covers everything from religion, sexual orientation, disabilities, culture, race. We cover the gamut in hopes of preparing them, but then we also hope that part of their clinical experience will give them an opportunity as well, in addition to trainings that we do also. Any comments from the group?
Okay, I'm gonna because there are completely different experiences based off of the type of person that you're talking to. Because contrary to popular belief, there are different types of gay. There are so many different strands that don't make no sense. And so for me, somebody that affirms themselves as transgender, and I walk around in what you may call it, female gaff every day. This is just me. This is not me sneaking out to go to the club. This isn't what I pretend to be while I'm at school and I go home and butch up. I don't do that. So for me, finding a job is always hard. Thank God I'm actually one of the people that are into these stereotypical gay things. I like makeup, I like hair. So I can always go to what's comfortable. I can go to Sephora or MAC or Dillard's or somewhere where I can sell shoes to women who aren't gonna, look at me like I'm crazy, and I'll be welcomed in the workplace. However, working somewhere as simple as Burger King is not as easy for me. I can be twice as educated as the next thug walking in, still sagging his pants, that works there currently, but because of the idea that I may make customers feel uncomfortable, and I've been told this, me working the cash register make customers feel uncomfortable, and they may not want to revisit our store, so they cannot hire me if I choose to work that way. I understand it, I respect it, but I think it's ludicrous, because a lot of the times customers don't care. If a customer is really there to be a customer, they're going to get their stuff, they're going to leave, and they'll return, because you're not going to stop me from doing what I came here to do. But that's just my personal experience. I think that for somebody who affirms as Darian and walks around in his truth, most people probably wouldn't even understand or know that he was a gay man until they saw mannerisms or what they call acting gay, whatever that may be, out of him. So I think I should let either him or Caleb or Acacia, who is a lesbian woman who is still very feminine, explain their truth.
So when she comes forward, we're going to allow Acacia to kind of share a little of her experience, but I just wanted to remind you as we get ready to wrap up our conversation tonight, it's just the mere fact that I applaud all of you for being here. I applaud you for standing as you listen to the prompts, to stand in your truth, whatever that may have been, but then also just being present. We know that sometimes, and I share this with my students as they're working with clients, sometimes just for a client to show up and be present speaks volumes as it relates to not showing up at all. So just being present speaks volumes. So I thank all of you for being here tonight and just being present and being open enough to the experience. The College of Ed, we wanted to make sure that we prepare our students for what they're going to experience through our courageous conversations and looking at various viewpoints every single month as it relates to diverse topics. We won't be able to do everything. We won't be able to accomplish everything in an hour. Sometimes our coursework, we won't be able to do that either, but we're hoping that we can start the dialogue so that we can respect one another and understand that we can only see the world through the world that we know, and it's not until we're exposed to something else that we begin to see things in a different form or fashion. Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Okay, cool. As Hope said, I am Kasia, and I am a lesbian identified female. I am more feminine, so the, correct terminology would be femme. And I want to say that my truth is more of she's passing, so we're not going to really, address it. And I feel as though for feminine lesbians, we don't really experience as much discrimination as a flamboyant gay man may feel or a masculine gay woman or lesbian woman may feel. For me, when I came out to my mother, at first she was kind of like, wait, what? Like, you've had boyfriends for years. And little did she know those boyfriends were never anything. They were just friends who knew my situation and wanted to help me as far as keeping up this facade of me being straight. And I never really had a boyfriend. It was the friends that came over to spend a night or kick it, and not to make it a sexual thing, because that's never what it was. It was just that person that I connected with on that level, that I did not get that from a man. I didn't get it from talking to a guy or having a guy. It was not me. And to meet a female and be able to talk to her and communicate with her and her feel where I'm coming from and her understand that even though I am a feminine female and you are a feminine female, we are attracted to each other. For me, I want to say, kind of breaking point was for the longest my mother thought it was a phase. Oh, she's going through a phase, you know, her friend's gay, she's just doing what seems to be the norm right now. And I remember telling her, we were watching, I don't know if you've ever seen the Beyonce video, Best Thing You've Never Had, where she had on that amazing white dress, the wedding dress. And I remember my mother saying, I guess I'll never see you in a dress like that. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I plan on getting married. I have my whole entire wedding planned out in my brain. I just don't know who I'm going to be standing up there with. But the entire thing is planned out in my brain. And I told her that, and she was like, well, you marrying a man, right? And I was like, probably not. I'm going to marry a woman. And she was like, oh, well, I won't be there. I was like, wow, really? Like, and to have your mother say that, it's kind of like, it took me back to the place of coming out to friends who didn't appreciate it or didn't accept it and were like, oh, well, I ain't kicking it with you no more. Like, I don't want to get undressed in front of you. I don't want to spend the night over your house, whatever the situation may be. And I think that for men, when you hear or see a man that is flamboyant, you immediately think he wants you. He probably doesn't. He probably has a boyfriend and is living with him and is very happy and ain't thought about you a day in his life. Hasn't even, in no way, shape, or form. But because you have that homophobic attitude, that's immediately what you go to. That's immediately, he wants me, immediately. You don't think that he may just want to be your friend or want to enjoy your company. Never thinking of anything more than that. Never thinking of it to be a sexual situation or an emotional situation in no way, shape, or form. For me, telling my mother that I wanted to get married and her telling me, well, I won't be there was one thing, but to hear it from my entire family, like, you know, for the longest she didn't accept it, but when I moved in with my girlfriend, she started to accept it. She was like, okay, well, I guess this is what it's gonna be. But once I told her that I was getting married, it was like that whole mentality of it being a phase came back into play, and it was like, well, I really was hoping that you would marry a guy. I was hoping that you would just never get married and, you know, do what you want to do. And I feel like because that religious idea of what marriage is what took her into that, you know, that mindset of you shouldn't marry, you're going to go to hell, whatever the situation may be. And I feel as though if the Bible says this, do not judge, how can you tell me, did he come down or send you a text message like, tell Kasia she going to hell tonight? Like, I don't see that as that happening. So, okay, cool. So for me to not have my family's support as far as a wedding is concerned, something that is very important to me, it made me feel as though I was unloved. But once I realized that really the only thing that matters is that me and the person that I love and want to be with is standing up there before anyone who wants to witness our love is all that really matters. And for her to not be there, it'll hurt, but it would hurt more if I lived as something that I am absolutely not. If I lived this facade of wanting to say, well, I want to make my mother happy, so I'll be straight and I'll marry a man and I'll have kids with the man. No, I want to marry a woman and I want to have children with that woman. I want to live my life the way I want to live my life, and I don't think anyone should be allowed or afforded the opportunity to tell me that I can and cannot, you know, be with who makes me happy.
So we're going to take our comment from this gentleman, if you would pass him the mic, and then we'll have our final comment from Kayla. But I just want to remind everyone if they would complete the assessment form and turn it on the way out to a volunteer and pick up one of the purple forms, which gives you additional information about the